Hello everybody, welcome to my PIP presentation. Before we get started, I just want to apologize for my voice. I am sick right now, which is less than ideal, but hopefully you can still enjoy the presentation. So this is my PIP. I chose to study Makerspaces in the English Language Arts classroom, and there's a little picture of me in the corner if you don't know what I look like. So before we really get into the nitty-gritty, I just want to give an overview of what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to start with an introduction where we talk about what a makerspace really is, and then we're going to take a look at makerspaces in motion and look at how I accomplished my final project and what that process was like and what I actually did. And then we're going to have a short lesson on circuits, where you can be involved and try it at home if you are so inclined. And again, before we get started, there's a link in the description to a Jamboard where I have posted a couple questions for you to answer. So if you wouldn't mind taking a moment just to fill those out, you can pause the video, and that'll just make this feel a little bit more like a community effort and less like you're sitting in a room watching me talk. So when you're finished with that, you can come back here and then we can really get started. So, an introduction. What is a makerspace? Well, Google defines it as a place in which people with shared interests, especially in computing or technology, can gather to work on projects while sharing ideas, equipment, and knowledge. And I think that's a pretty great definition just to sum up the essence of a makerspace. So in the bottom left corner, there's a picture of a makerspace in a school setting at the University of Houston, and that's where a lot of makerspaces live, is in schools. And above that photo, you can see a picture of a makerspace at the University of Massachusetts, but this is a makerspace for fashion, where students can go and design textiles. So makerspaces are not just confined to computer technology or IT or things like that. There's lots of different kinds of makerspaces. At the bottom of the screen, there is a logo for Maker Faire, and this is a logo for a convention about makerspaces. So conventions or community events are another space that makerspaces live. And lastly, I wanted to talk about a company called KiwiCo, and this is a subscription box-based company, and my brother actually subscribes to this, and every month he gets a Tinker Box, which is a box that essentially comes with all the supplies that he will need to create a maker project. So makerspaces are something that you can purchase in the form of a subscription box. And those are just a few examples of what makerspaces look like. It's not limited to these examples, but I thought that this would just be a nice beginning overview of what they may be. So moving on to makerspaces in motion. I began my project by brainstorming what I wanted to accomplish. And while I was brainstorming, I came up with a few objectives that I wanted to keep in mind throughout my PIP. So for my final artifact, I wanted it to be applicable to a high school English language arts classroom. And that's because I'm in school to become a high school English teacher. The next thing that I wanted to keep in mind was I didn't want my final artifact or project to be something that needed a lot of special skill to accomplish. I wanted it to be something that all students could participate in, but at the same time, I wanted some element of challenge. Obviously, I didn't want to just do something I already knew how to do. I wanted to challenge myself and the students who could potentially do this project as well. And the next thing is I wanted this project to be cost-effective and affordable. And this was for myself, but also just to keep in mind issues of equity in schools. I didn't want this to be something that only schools in wealthier parts of town could do. And the last thing is that I wanted this project to be effective, engaging, and educational. Obviously, I want it to be related to English language arts. I want the students doing this to actually learn something. And I also wanted it to be engaging in a sort of creative sense. And I wanted students to be able to use their problem-solving skills. And overall, I wanted this project to be something where students could use all the different parts of their brains and all the different skills that they have. And so in executing these objectives, there was a few things that I decided on. And for my final artifact, I decided to create a physical model of an essay, which is a project I think could easily be replicated in a high school classroom. And I decided to really learn a lot about simple circuits because they're relatively easy to learn and they're cheap to create. So I thought that this would be a good way for students to kind of dip their toes into technology if they haven't already. The next thing is that I decided to challenge myself a little bit and not make any purchases for this project outside of the circuit materials. I wanted to see if it was actually possible to create a project like this without buying anything and just using things that I found around my house. And again, this goes into making the project cost effective and affordable. And the last thing is that I wanted to keep this project a little bit open-ended. So a physical model of an essay could look like really anything. And this was, again, to make the project engaging and ask students to use their creativity and challenge them a little bit. So moving on to the process, on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see a mind map that I began with. And then on the right-hand side of the screen is where I began designing my project, just to get an idea of how I was going to make it, what supplies I would need, and what it would end up looking like. And I have to make an honorable mention to my sweet cat, Tom. He was a really great helper throughout this whole process. So this is my final product. This is what I ended up creating for my artifact. Like I said, it's a physical model of an essay, and each part of the model represents a part of an essay. I implemented the simple circuits into a little light bulb at the top of my model. And my thought there was that when all of these parts come together, you get the idea and the light bulb goes off in your head. All right, so now it's your turn. Now we're gonna have a little lesson on how to create a simple circuit. When creating a circuit, there's a couple things that you're gonna need. The first thing is a coin cell battery, and the next thing you'll need is copper tape, and the last thing you'll need are LED lights. The next thing you'll need to understand when creating a circuit is positives and negatives. So the coin cell batteries have a positive side and a negative side. The positive side you can see on the far left side of the screen. It has a plus sign, and the negative side is not marked with a minus sign, but it's usually the side that's not the positive side. And for the LED lights, the longer side of the wire is the positive side and the shorter side is the negative side. So when you're making a circuit, the most important thing to remember is to keep all of the negatives on one side and the positives on the other side. So as you can see on this little template, the negative side of the LED light is connected with the copper tape to the negative side of the coin cell battery. The same with the positive side. The positive side of the LED light is connected with the copper tape to the positive side of the battery. And with this template, the idea is that there is one battery and you'll fold over on that slanted line at the bottom. And once you fold that over, each side of the battery will be connected to each side of the copper tape. And once you fold that piece over, it will make a closed circuit. And what that means is that it basically makes a circle. Every part of the circuit is connected. And hopefully, if you've done everything correctly, when you close that circuit, your LED will light up. So I did a few projects with my little brother that you can see on the screen. The two pictures on the left side and the middle are projects that we made. I made a sort of little greeting card with my cat on it, and he made a creepy little face. And on the right hand side of the screen, you can see some projects that I found online where people used the LED lights. So there's a lot of different things you can do, and it's a lot of fun. And once you get the hang of it and you get the idea of what you're supposed to be doing, it's pretty easy. So that concludes my presentation. I hope you found it enjoyable, educational, and maybe this has inspired you to go out and make some circuits for yourself. I think it's super fun, and once you get the hang of it, you definitely feel like a genius. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.